Showtime, you have fought inside this arena. You know what it's like to be a part of big fight nights. What does it mean?
I fought here once, by the way.
Okay, once. But you've been a part of some major events. You went ahead and had a big win over Adrian Broner here inside this arena. But what is it like when fighters compete here at the MGM Grand Garden Arena?
We love it. I mean, I even love that the weigh-in is open to the public and it's filling up in here. These fighters deserve it. We want to be seen. We want to show out. And when we hear that noise, that gets us going. You know, so that's what's most important about a big fight in a big arena like this. You fill it up and you give everybody what they want.
So you're telling me that the louder the fans cheer, the better you perform. You haven't been in that spot many times?
Listen, unless you're on the canvas. If you can't and you're on the canvas and they screaming, then you got a different story. But yeah, for the most part, you hear all of the good stuff, you hear all of the bad stuff. Sometimes you hear the stupid stuff, but it always pushes you forward, you know what I mean?
Now, Gervonta Davis in our main event looking to go to 30-0. Just looking at him by himself, how special is Tank Davis?
Special, man. He honestly has put himself in a class of his own. I always like to say that he's fought himself out of the shadow of Floyd Mayweather. I think he got more recognition than most fighters would at his age because of Floyd, but he certainly has burst through that shadow, and he stands by himself now. Power is undeniable, and the skills that go along with it. I love hearing Calvin Ford say, push them buttons, Frank, push them. Yeah, hey, trust me, Frank gonna push them buttons, and we're gonna see both these guys do some things we haven't seen them do before.
Let's talk about Frank Martin. Frank Martin, 18-0, 12 knockouts. He's a southpaw. Trains under the guidance of Derek James. You know, his promoter is Errol Spence Jr. from Andon Promotions. But can you tell us about how good Frank Martin is? Because I don't think we've quite seen anywhere near the best that Frank Martin has to offer.
You know, first of all, I got to shout out Errol Spence Jr. Check out, again, the Porterweight podcast. Check out the interview that we did yesterday. Phenomenal interview, but he says something to me yesterday on the show that I don't run into a lot of promoters and managers telling me that they've given advice to fighters. You know, seeing Errol on the stage with this fighter on the press conference, to me that was special. And then he told me, he said, I told him every fighter has to be here at some point. You tell me what champion never had that first experience. Everybody's saying you've never experienced this before. So what? At some point, they hadn't. Be yourself, be calm, be cool. And I felt like he was giving his fighter a lot of emotional and mental support, which is something that a lot of us need, you know? Once you get past that, though, the kid can check off a lot of boxes. Speed, power, quickness. He's very intuitive. He's a counterpuncher. He's not going to be running into stuff like y'all seen a lot of Tank Davis's past opponents do. You know what I mean? This one is going to be tactical. Enjoy the chess match, y'all. This one is going to be a chess match, trust me.
Does it mean even that much more, Shawn, because both guys are undefeated and there's such a mentality to defend that perfect record?
Yeah, you know, I think for Tank, the expectation is what's going to push him forward. You know, if there's any doubt at all that they're losing the fight, what's going to push him forward is the expectation to beat Tank Davis, you know? And then for Frank, not wanting to lose that really does mean something. I think for me, it meant something when I lost it, but I didn't understand it until it was gone. But I never looked at my loss like, well, I got a loss. It don't matter if I lose now. No. I wanted to win every fight, you know? But when you actually have that it does mean something. When you feel that fight slipping away from you, you can hold on to something. That is something that you can grab a hold on to.
Well, speaking of being undefeated, David Benavidez now fighting at 175, taking on Oleksandr Gvozdyk. For David Benavidez, now coming up to a new weight class, 7 pounds north. What are you expecting out of the undefeated David Benavidez?
You know, I think the challenge that a lot of people expected to see from him at 168, to me, there's no one that can challenge him at 168. Those challenges are now at 175. He's fighting guys just as big as he is. Gvozdyk, he's fighting guys that have a lot of experience, or he will be. You know, this is the first challenge at 175. I think that this will be one of the more evenly matched fights that we'll see David in. David has always had the X factor everybody's been in the ring with. Caleb Plant, for an example. Caleb just as fast as David. Most guys aren't as fast as David at 168. Caleb just as fast, but doesn't have the strength to keep off that monster. I think moving up to 175, the playing field is going to be a little more even. If anything, we'll have more speed with both the hands and the feet, and that'll offset everything for him moving forward. We'll see.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, obviously, David Benavidez, he has his focus on Oleksandr Gvozdyk here at 175, but we have heard throughout the week that he has no problem going back down to 168 for one particular name. We all know Canelo Alvarez. That's what David Benavidez wants. I'd love to see it. I'm sure you would as well. But in your estimation, how big of a fight could that be for the sport of boxing?
That is the fight, in my personal opinion, that David Benavidez needs to become a superstar in boxing. And I say this respectfully because this fight with Gvozdyk, I'm sure if I ask how much of y'all know what y'all know about Gvozdyk, it won't be very many people screaming, hooping, and hollering. You got to promote both sides. And I feel like when it comes to David Benavidez, we know him to be the monster. Let's talk about who he's getting in the ring with. You know what I mean? Let's talk about how great and exciting this fight is going to be. If you keep pushing the monster and the monster scaring everybody away, you know, you don't have anything to work with. Right now, Canelo Alvarez at 168 is the guy I think that makes David Benavidez the star. I'm going to say it. Y'all, if y'all ain't seen the Porter Way podcast, Canelo cannot beat David Benavidez.
Wow, you're saying that.
I respect Canelo. He can't beat him. That's why he ain't calling his name. And I think in the last fight he had against Munguia in the post-fight, he hinted at fighting Benavidez. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we see Benavidez stay at 175 and fight his way to becoming the superstar that he should already be.
Possibly matchups against Better Biev or Bivol?
Oh, absolutely. That's what we're waiting on.
Can you imagine those fights?
I don't think we see Better Biev, but I definitely feel like we should be able to see David Benavidez get in the ring with Bivol. To me, that might be a 50-50 fight.
I love that.
That might be the 50-50 fight. I know, like I said before, we haven't seen David in a lot of contending fights where from round one to the end of the fight, it's been a competitive fight. At some point, he just takes off. With Bivol, I think that might be the most 50-50 fight out here for Benavidez.
You're on to something if he's able to beat Oleksandr Gvozdyk. Sean, you're a busy man. What do you got coming up on the Porter Way podcast? How can people subscribe?
Porter Way podcast, we're live every Tuesday. You guys subscribe. We're on every podcast platform. We're on YouTube. I always tell y'all, check out the YouTube because that's where you get to see the characters be characters. We love it on there. And we got a lot of comedians coming on, a lot of actors coming on, and we're taking it to another level. Also, our Patreon, subscribe to our Patreon, TPWP.
Ladies and gentlemen, showtime. Shawn Porter, give it up.